team is positioned for success. Okay, so that concludes the presentation. At this point, I'll take some questions from the audience. Any questions that you might have, you can submit using the webinar question feature. I'll leave the advertisement up here. I'm going to do that. Let's see. We have one question. What is the call-in number again? I can't dial in the number. That's regrettable. So the person asking the question had left. When you get your invite and you register, you should be given a Outlook invite, by the way, and that should have that number in it. But I would encourage you to write that down just in case, because certainly that's you know, a potential problem if you don't have the call-in number. Let's see. Question here. Somebody having a question about fail to fire someone who needs firing, but it doesn't say what the question is. So hopefully they'll ask it again. Okay. Now, a question from Rich. Applying the 10 items to the Scrum framework, how do these dumb things apply, or is V-model, waterfall, XP, etc. irrelevant to this conversation? I would say that it's possible to be a smart, effective, efficient tester or test team in any life cycle, and it's possible to be a dumb, ineffective, inefficient tester or test team in any life cycle. Obviously, we have to adapt ourselves to the life cycle, and that's part of being smart. And I think that ties into this understanding of what the stakeholders need and expect from us. And certainly one of the things they would need and expect is the ability to synchronize ourselves with the life cycle. But I think if you look at most of the things that I talked about, they actually are completely life cycle independent, you know, and really apply anywhere. A question from Arib. First time using the Citrix app for a webinar. Is there any way I can get or save the slides for this presentation? So the slides themselves, as I mentioned, are on the website, www.rbcs-us.com. They're in the basic library. Feel free to download them. I would appreciate it if you want other people to take a look at them, that you forward the link rather than forwarding the downloaded PDF. And the reason I say that is because I want to make sure that people understand that these are copyrighted intellectual properties and that they're posted there for people to use, but they're not posted there for people to distribute or to give their own presentations on or incorporate into their own material and so forth. So, but certainly feel free to forward the link to anyone that you think might be interested. And come July, next month, this webinar and the previous two webinars will be available in recorded format on our website, so you'll be able to actually listen to the presentation. And again, the same thing would apply there, that you could feel free to forward that link on to anybody in your organization who might be interested. And then finally, as I've mentioned on the website, if you want this webinar or any other webinar on any test-related topic presented in-house for your test team or for other people in your organization, feel free to contact us, and we'll be happy to arrange that for you guys. A question from Summit. Have you ever been in a scenario where there was so much process that it slowed down or hindered testing to a point where testers were not able to find all bugs? Well, I'm going to assume, Summit, that you mean not able to find the bugs they should, and the most important bugs. I mean, you'll never be able to find all bugs, but to your main thrust of your question of too much process, I've seen that. Now this has an intersection with the question that Rich asked earlier about life cycles. because it gets into a bigger question of the overall environment, world in which the testing has to live and operate. And certain environments, like if you're in a regulated environment, FDA regulations, for example, safety critical systems of various kinds, there is the need to create auditable documentation that things happened. And for our clients that are in that kind of world, we do see a fair amount of process, but it is not unnecessary process. It's necessary because of the world in which they live. And I think this is sort of the criterion that needs to be applied here when you're looking at process. You need to have enough process to satisfy whatever requirements there are to get the job done. And certainly if you're in an environment where there's a lot of, say, employee turnover or something like that, then there can be a need for more process because you have to write down things that might otherwise be obvious. Also in large organizations, there's some value in having more process in place so that you can ensure consistency of test teams across the organization, which allows for comparability of KPIs, success metrics, across different groups, and also allows groups to share best practices because they do things in similar ways. But certainly, yes, to your point, it is indeed possible for there to be too much process or process for process's own sake. I think this is, I didn't include this on my 10 worst thing because I don't think that I see it as often as I see the others, but I suppose if I were to do a top 20, it might very well figure in that list. Is there any questionnaire to assess your situation, Omar asks. Yes, absolutely. So as I said, there are a number of frameworks out there, and I think if you say, well, what are the top frameworks, I think, critical testing processes, which is in my book of the same name, systematic test and evaluation process, which is or software test and evaluation process, which is the book Systematic Software Testing. There's TMM and TMMI, which is described in Practical Software Testing, I think it's called, Bernstein's book, and then there's Test Process Improvement, or TPI, which is described in Martin Pohl's book. Obviously, I'm somewhat partial to my own critical testing processes. I think if you pick up a copy of that book and you work your way through it, you'll see that it is structured to allow you to look at a number of elements, processes, and determine how you're doing. Can you give a real-life example of a pain that you use these practices on? This is a question from Kirby. Yeah, absolutely. So we had a client, and the client, we still have the client, this client, when we did the assessment, they spent anywhere from a quarter to a third of the test execution period on what they refer to, and I mentioned this before, as environmental shakeout. And this was a euphemism, because basically what happened is that the system to be tested would come to them in such horrible shape that you just couldn't do anything with it. And so they get new builds, and then it turned out the environment wasn't set up right, and then it would turn out that the test data wasn't loaded right, and all this stuff that could have been done prior to the start of system test execution. And when we got there, they were just sort of blasé about it. Everybody was. It was like, oh, this is the way things go. It was like in the Middle Ages when a quarter to a third of children didn't